Game of Thrones' most destructive and bloodthirsty character might actually be this decrepit, two-timing liar of a walking corpse of an old man, Grand Maester Pycelle, and I'm not kidding. This man is responsible for so much death and destruction in this series, and we don't give him his due because he looks like that. Now, I wouldn't go as far as the show does and say that he's faking his age. No, Grand Maester Pycelle is old. He's old as shit. He's in his 80s or 90s. He's ancient. So no, he isn't doing the same bit where oh, he's actually really limber, blah, blah, blah. But he is still a liar, and he still is using his oldness as a means of, playing the game. But let's give some perspective on this man before we get to, all the people he's responsible for inadvertently killing. Like I said, Grand Maester Pycelle is old. He is old as hell. And to give you some context for how old he is, he earned his Maester's chain during the reign of King Maekar Targaryen. To put that in, the timeline, Maekar Targaryen is Maester Aemon's father. So when 102-year-old Maester Aemon's father was sitting on the Iron Throne, this was a spry young man being I'm gonna be a Maester. And become a Maester he did. In fact, he became the Grand Maester at a relatively young age compared to a lot of them, after some suspicious circumstances. At least I think they're suspicious. I say it's suspicious because there was actually another Grand Maester who had just been appointed to the court, specifically the court of Aegon V. Again, so old. But this Grand Maester, Maester Marion, I think his name was, he was assigned to become, the new Grand Maester, and then on his way there, he dies. Now, I know I said that was suspicious. I just think that because, he suddenly gets to become Grand Maester, and he's also known for having just a weird collection of poisons randomly. You could argue that, multiple Maesters sometimes have some poisons. Sure, but you know what? I like to think that this devious little thing probably killed his predecessor. We're just having fun here. Anyway, Pycelle, gets to become Grand Maester, and then sticks around for over 40 years serving 6 different kings. You are a cockroach, sir. And over the course of his tenure, Pycelle does very well. And I think he does very well because he is, at the end of the day, an opportunist. Another reason I think he killed Marion. He is an opportunist. The big example of this, though, is I think the way that he eventually would ingratiate himself with the Lannister family. Once he was Grand Maester to Aerys and Tywin was Hand of the King, he became a huge fan of Tywin. He loved him and just wanted House Lannister to do well because he's oh, they're doing great. I'm going to be loyal to them. They're going to rub my back. I'm going to rub their back, and it's all going to be a wonderful relationship. And in a way, it does kind of work out for him. Because this weasel takes a very calculated risk at a key point in the story, and that is the end of Robert's Rebellion. Because at the end of Robert's Rebellion, the rebellion has kind of turned the tide. It looks like they're winning. At this point, the rebel army is marching towards King's Landing, and, probably about to decimate the place. But oh no, not all is lost, because guess who is showing up at the gates of King's Landing? Oh, Tywin Lannister and the entire Lannister army. You probably know where this is going. Now remember, by this point, Aerys is fully cuckoo bananas. He has lost his mind. He is all over the place. He trusts no one. His paranoia is out of control. But he he realizes he is very much probably about to die. And so Pycelle plays on that and says, hey, Tywin is really your friend. I know this is scary right now, but just let him in. He's gonna protect us. Just let them all in, give the order, and we'll be safe. And then, of course, Aerys acquiesces and lets the Lannisters in. And what do the Lannisters do? Well, they sack King's Landing. They ruin the place. They murder tons of people. They do lots of other war crimes that are really bad. And it is a horror show. And it's all this man's fault. So at this point, you might be saying okay, well, you know what? Maybe he did think that Tywin would save the city, and then he was just wrong. No, he didn't think that. Because, everyone at this point thinks that Aerys does need to go. He is too far gone at this point. It isn't tenable for him to stay in this position of power. It's too chaotic. Everyone's gonna burn, as, they very much almost did. And so Pycelle convinces him to let Tywin in, thinking that, Tywin is probably about to sack King's Landing, but then with doing that, he's also probably going to try to take the throne. And once I have helped put Tywin on the throne, I will once again be even better positioned than I was before because I have been loyal to House Lannister. Now, obviously, Tywin doesn't end up taking the throne because Robert is just, the more feasible choice overall. He has more avenues that he can justify his rulership of the whole kingdom than Tywin or really anyone else does who isn't a Targaryen. But Pycelle still leverages that relationship with Tywin and, the key assistance that he gave to Tywin as a means of getting in good with Robert and then, being with the Baratheons from that point forward. But still with the caveat that his true loyalty will always be to House Lannister. And he proves that over and over again because, beyond being responsible for the sacking of King's Landing, and I'm going to put that at his feet, it wouldn't have happened if he hadn't convinced Daenerys to open the damn door, knowing full well what would probably happen. But he is also, partially responsible for the death of Jon Arryn and would have been responsible also for the death of Robert Baratheon had, the boar not, done such a stellar job. Because in the aftermath of Tyrion doing his whole, let me suss out who the real liar is when he's testing Pycelle and Varys and Littlefinger and finds out that Pycelle is the leak, Pycelle also admits to helping to kill Jon Arryn. Because Jon Arryn's maester, who was treating him, got sent away by Grand Maester Pycelle, saying that, no, I'm going to look over him personally. And it was because his own maester was doing a good job. And Pycelle's like, we can't do that. We need them dead because, Cersei needs him dead. He also tells Tyrion that the plan had been to basically do the same thing for Robert if it became necessary, though it never became necessary because, the boar got him good. Now, he justifies this by saying, hey, I did this for the good of House Lannister. Robert needed to get out of the way. Jon Arryn did first because he knew too much. And then Robert needed to go because possibly Renly Baratheon had been planning to basically replace Cersei Lannister with Margaery Tyrell. Assuming this was born of some canoodling he was doing with Loras in, wanting to solidify their match and then also solidify the Tyrells in King's Landing over the Lannisters. And I don't remember if that whole plot was confirmed, but I do think that it was probably happening because the Margaery Tyrell is mentioned a few times, specifically by Renly, in how pretty she is, and apparently, if I'm remembering correctly, I think Robert even mentions that Renly keeps talking about how pretty this Tyrell girl is supposed to be, and it's oh, what are you trying to do there, Renly? But basically, Pycelle puts a stop to it. Pycelle is the one over and over again, basically either killing people or making sure that they die at the right time to help benefit House Lannister. Though he is not above betraying them if needs be. Spoilers for Feast for Crows. The person whose comment I'm tagging said they were reading the book, so that's why I'm telling them. But he eventually does kind of betray Cersei too. In Feast for Crows, in the aftermath of Tywin dying, Cersei's now in charge and just running amok. And he actually starts to lose patience. He over and over again is counseling, being hey, some of these decisions are dumb and bad. And so she starts considering hey, replacing him. And I think he probably got a whiff of that and didn't like it because he would eventually screw her over. Because in the aftermath of her getting arrested by the Faith Militant, he basically kind of stages a little bit of a coup, baby coup. Now you might argue that he didn't really, but I say he did. Because basically with that power vacuum, him and I think, was it Swift or Merryweather? I don't know. One of the old, doddering guys on Cersei's small council basically together just do a coup. I don't know how else to say it. They, kick out Cersei's, hand-picked people. The guy, one of the Kettlebecks that Cersei had put in charge of the City Watch, he gets rid of him. And then after they've, installed their own people, he then calls Kevin Lannister and offers him the regency and says, hey, come back. We're leaving Cersei in prison. You come be in charge now. Which, yes, is the smart decision, but it's fascinating to see that, yes, his loyalty is to House Lannister, but his ultimate loyalty is to himself. And if he needs to, find a better Lannister to serve, he's just gonna do it. Also, final baby note. Something that I wish they had kept from the books into the TV show is the fact that Grand Maester Pycelle does not dress in the normal maester robes. He is described as dressing in these super fancy and elaborate, beautiful robes of deep crimson red with gold tassels and all this stuff. And this beautiful tealy and purple number. And it's so extra and ridiculous. It's giving the Pope with those red Prada wedges that he likes to wear. Well, not the current Pope, previous popes. But I just think it's funny that maesters are supposed to be, demure, and this man just very much is not. He wears the fancy clothes, he sleeps with people when he's not supposed to be sleeping with people, and he is, doing politicking, which isn't really what the maesters are supposed to be doing. But it's okay because he gets a really unceremonious death off screen, and I love it for him. Okay, goodbye.